The smell of pot roast filled every corner of Rob Harrison's Arlington home that Friday evening. He'd been making this recipe for 40 years, first for Helen, then for the two of them and baby Daniel, and for the past 3 decades, for family dinners that had become tradition. Tonight, though, the familiar ritual felt different, heavier somehow. Rob checked his watch, 6:15 p.m., 15 minutes until they arrived. He walked through the living room, past the photographs that marked his life's milestones. Helen's smile caught his eye from their wedding photo, that same smile that had faded slowly over 18 months of hospitals and treatments. 3 years gone now, and some days it still didn't feel real. "She'd know what to say," Rob muttered to the empty room. "She always did." The doorbell chimed at exactly 6:30. Daniel burst through first, his face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. At 32, his son still had that same eager energy, that need to please everyone around him. It had made him kind. It had also made him vulnerable. "Dad, they're here!" Daniel stepped aside, revealing the woman who'd occupied every conversation for the past 3 months. Jessica Park stood in the doorway like she'd stepped out of a catalog, mid-20s, flawless makeup, wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than Rob's monthly utilities. Her smile was practiced, perfect. "Mr. Harrison, thank you so much for having us." She handed him a potted orchid, her nails immaculate. "Daniel talks about you constantly." "Please, call me Rob." He accepted the plant, noting how her handshake was firm but brief. "And thank you." Helen always loved orchids. Behind Jessica, an older couple nodded with synchronized courtesy. Richard Cooper and Linda Foster, supposedly Jessica's parents, though Rob noticed immediately that neither shared any physical resemblance to their daughter. Richard's hair was too perfectly silver, Linda's posture too straight. They moved like people conscious of being watched. "Come in, please." Rob stepped aside. "Dinner's almost ready." Daniel practically vibrated with nervous energy as he guided Jessica through the living room. "Jessica teaches piano at the Arlington Community Center, Dad, and she volunteers at the animal shelter every weekend." "How wonderful," Rob said, genuinely impressed despite his reservations. "What kind of music do you prefer teaching?" Jessica's face brightened. "Oh, classical mostly. Chopin, Debussy, though I do enjoy teaching children popular songs. It keeps them engaged, you know?" The first hour passed smoothly. The pot roast was tender, the conversation flowed easily enough. Richard asked polite questions about Rob's electronics repair shop. Linda complimented the green bean casserole. Jessica hung on Daniel's every word as he talked about their wedding plans. "We're thinking spring," Daniel said, cutting into his roast. "Maybe April. Jessica wants cherry blossoms in the photos." "That sounds perfect, son." Rob raised his wineglass, watching Jessica over the rim. "To new beginnings." Everything changed during dessert. Rob had just returned from the kitchen with coffee when Jessica leaned toward her parents, and her voice dropped. She switched to Korean, probably thinking the old man across from her couldn't understand a word. "Nulgun dwejiga amugo I hahaji moshaeo." The old pig doesn't understand anything. Rob's hand froze halfway to his coffee cup. 20 years in military intelligence, 15 of them focused on Korean and Chinese communications, and she thought he was just some clueless retiree. "Neo mu babo gatayo, igeon suiul geoyeo." So stupid. This will be easy. Richard and Linda nodded, their responses stiff and rehearsed, like actors reading lines they'd memorized phonetically. The coffee cup felt suddenly heavy in Rob's hand. Adrenaline surged through his veins, that old familiar feeling from the service, when a situation turned dangerous without warning. Every instinct screamed at him to stand up, to call her out right there. But decades of intelligence work had taught him patience. He'd learned to wait, to watch, to let people reveal themselves completely before making a move. Rob forced his face to remain neutral. He even managed to smile when Jessica looked his way. "The pie is delicious, Mr. Harrison," she said in English, that honey-sweet voice back in place. "You simply must give me the recipe." "Of course, dear," Rob replied, his voice steady despite the fury building inside. "Helen would have loved to share it with you." But something else nagged at him. Her accent when she spoke Korean, it wasn't quite right. He'd spent years in Seoul, knew the regional differences. Jessica's Korean had a strange quality to it, almost like someone who'd learned it as a second language. And that phrasing, "nulgun dweji," was oddly formal, textbook. When Jessica excused herself to use the bathroom, Rob listened. Old habits. He heard her on the phone, her voice muffled through the door. But this time she wasn't speaking Korean, she was speaking Mandarin. Ji hua jin xing de hun shun li, ta hui zai chun jie chen chu wo. The plan is going smoothly. He'll marry me before Chinese New Year. Rob's blood ran cold. She wasn't Korean at all. She was Chinese, playing a role. The evening wound down with more polite conversation. Daniel walked them to their car, completely oblivious. When he returned, his face was flushed with happiness. "Dad, thank you. This means everything to me. I can tell you really like her." Rob nodded, squeezing his son's shoulder, not trusting himself to speak. As he watched Daniel drive away, he stood in his doorway long after the taillights disappeared. The October air was cool against his face, but it did nothing to calm the thoughts racing through his mind. She thought he was a fool. She had no idea he'd understood every single word. Rob didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the dinner. By dawn, he'd made his decision, but when he called Daniel the next morning to suggest they talk, his son's voice was already defensive. "Dad, if this is about Jessica, son, I just think you should take your time. Get to know her better before making any big decisions." The silence on the other end stretched too long. "Dad, are you serious right now? You barely gave her a chance. It's not about giving chances, Daniel. It's about being careful." "Careful?" Daniel's voice rose. "Or prejudiced?" The word hit like a physical blow. "That's not fair." "Isn't it? Because that's exactly what this sounds like. Jessica's Korean American, and suddenly you have all these concerns?" Rob's jaw tightened. He wanted to tell Daniel everything. The Korean that wasn't quite right, the Mandarin phone call, the way her parents moved like hired actors. But without proof, it would sound exactly like what Daniel was accusing him of. "That's not what this is about." "Then what is it about, Dad?" Daniel's voice cracked. "Because Jessica warned me this might happen. She said some people have trouble accepting interracial relationships. I didn't want to believe she meant you." The manipulation was so smooth, so calculated, it took Rob's breath away. Jessica had planted seeds of doubt about him before he'd even expressed concern. "Son, listen to me." "No, you listen. I love her, and I thought you'd want me to be happy. Mom would have supported me. She would have given Jessica a real chance." The line went dead. Rob sat in his workshop, surrounded by the familiar smell of solder and motor oil, staring at his phone. Using Helen's memory as a weapon, that was Jessica's doing. He was certain of it. She'd studied Daniel, found his vulnerabilities, and was exploiting them with surgical precision. He pulled up his contacts, scrolling until he found a name he hadn't called in 5 years, Patricia Reynolds. Pat answered on the third ring. "Gideon Harrison, are you dying, or is this a pocket dial?" Despite everything, Rob smiled. Pat had been one of his best analysts back in the day, sharp, thorough, and now working for ICE in their fraud division. "Neither. I need a favor, Pat, a big one." "Must be serious if you're breaking radio silence. What's going on?" Rob explained everything. The dinner, the languages, his suspicions. To her credit, Pat didn't laugh or dismiss him. "Send me everything you have on her," Pat said when he finished. "Full name, date of birth, address. I'll run her through our databases, quietly." "How long?" "Give me 72 hours. "And Rob? If your instincts are firing this hard, there's something there. I've never known you to be wrong about people." While he waited for Pat's call, Rob hired a private investigator. Jake Morrison was ex-FBI, ran a small operation out of Falls Church, discreet, professional, and expensive. "Follow her," Rob said, sliding an envelope across Jake's desk. "I need to know where she goes, who she meets, what she does." Jake studied Jessica's photo. "What am I looking for?" "Anything that doesn't fit, anything that suggests she's not who she claims to be." 2 days crawled by. Rob threw himself into repair work, fixing radios and televisions with an intensity that surprised his regular customers. But his mind was never far from his phone, waiting for either Pat or Jake to call. Jessica visited the shop once during those 2 days. She came alone, carrying coffee and wearing an apologetic smile. "Mr. Harrison, Rob, I wanted to talk to you." She perched on his workbench, all earnest concern. "I know you're worried about Daniel. I understand that. He's your son, your only child. Of course you want to protect him." Rob set down his soldering iron carefully. I appreciate that, Jessica. I just want you to know that I love him, truly, and I would never do anything to hurt him. She reached out, touching his arm. I know we started off rocky, but I'm hoping we can get to know each other better. Just the two of us, maybe? Would you have coffee with me sometime? It was perfectly played, vulnerable, genuine, appealing to his role as father while simultaneously suggesting she was the reasonable one trying to bridge the gap. I'd like that, Rob lied smoothly. After she left, he stood at the window, watching her drive away in a BMW that was too new, too expensive for a piano teacher's salary. That evening, Jake called. You were right to be suspicious, Jake said without preamble. I followed her to Georgetown yesterday. She met with an Asian male, mid-30s, at a restaurant. They spoke for an hour and he handed her an envelope. I got photos. Send them to me. Already done. But there's something else. Her apartment? It's in a building that's way out of a community center piano teacher's price range. We're talking $3,500 a month. Rob studied the photos Jake had sent. The man Jessica met was well-dressed, confident. The way they sat close, the familiarity between them, this wasn't a casual acquaintance. On the morning of the third day, Pat finally called. Rob, you need to sit down. He was already sitting, but his grip tightened on the phone. What did you find? Jessica Park doesn't exist. I mean, she did. Died in a car accident in California 14 months ago. Someone stole her identity and has been using it for the past 8 months. The workshop suddenly felt too small, too airless. You're certain? I pulled the death certificate myself. The real Jessica Park was 26, Korean-American, single. She died when a drunk driver hit her car on Highway 1. No family, which probably made her an ideal target for identity theft. Who is she really? That's where it gets complicated. The digital trail is good, too good actually. Someone spent real money creating this identity, credit cards, bank accounts, employment records, but I cross-referenced with facial recognition software and got a hit in our immigration database. Rob waited, his heart pounding. Her real name, or at least another name she's used, is Min Jung Kim. She entered the country 3 years ago on a student visa from Beijing. The visa expired 2 years ago. She never left. Beijing, so she's Chinese. That matches what you heard. I dug deeper, Rob, and it gets worse. I found 2 other suspicious marriages in her pattern. A software engineer in Seattle 2 years ago. Marriage ended after 6 months when the guy reported her for identity fraud. Another one in Austin last year that fell apart before the wedding. Both victims reported losing money. Rob's hands were shaking now. How much? Seattle guy lost $340,000. Austin victim wouldn't say, but his lawyer filed fraud claims exceeding $500,000. Rob sat in his workshop after Pat's call, the weight of the information settling over him like a shroud. His son, his careful, intelligent, kind-hearted son, was being targeted by a professional. But knowing the truth and proving it to Daniel were 2 different things. Without concrete evidence, anything Rob said would sound like the prejudiced suspicions Daniel already accused him of having. His phone buzzed, a text from Pat. Call me, found something else. What is it? I contacted a friend at State Department, ran the name Min Jung Kim through their marriage records database. Pat paused. Rob, she's already married. The room tilted. What? Marriage certificate filed in Shanghai 3 years ago. Min Jung Kim married Wei Jiang, Chinese national, age 35. The marriage is still legally valid. She never divorced him. Rob closed his eyes. Marriage fraud, immigration fraud, identity theft. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was federal crime territory. If she marries Daniel, she could face 10 years in federal prison and permanent deportation, Pat finished. And Rob? If authorities think Daniel knew about any of this, if they think he's complicit, he could face charges too. He doesn't know. I'm certain of that. Then you need to protect him. Get him away from her before this explodes. After hanging up with Pat, Rob made another call. Jake had been continuing surveillance, and his latest report added more pieces to the puzzle. The Asian guy she met? I ran his plates. Cars registered to a business address in Bethesda, an immigration consulting firm. But get this, when I checked online, the firm's website went dark 2 days after their meeting, like it never existed. What about her parents? Jake laughed, a sharp bark. That's the interesting part. I did some digging into Richard Cooper and Linda Foster. They're exactly who they appear to be, except they're not her parents. They're actors, local theater company, Arlington Community Theater. They do what they call cultural family packages. What the hell is that? Exactly what it sounds like. Rent a family for events, weddings, photos, immigration hearings, goes for about $800 per couple per event. Rob felt sick. Every single piece of Jessica's life was manufactured. The loving parents, the sweet piano teacher persona, probably even the apartment was temporary, all part of an elaborate con. But he still needed more. He needed something Daniel couldn't deny. That evening, he drove to Murphy's Cafe in Pentagon City. Pat was already there, a manila folder on the table in front of her. "Before I give you this," Pat said, "I need you to understand something. What's in here? This isn't just information anymore. This is evidence of ongoing federal crimes. Once you see it, once you know it, you'll have a responsibility to report it." "I understand." Pat slid the folder across. "Then you should also know that I've already briefed a contact at FBI. They're interested, very interested." Rob opened the folder. Inside were printouts, photographs, official documents, the marriage certificate from Shanghai, translated into English, immigration records showing Min Jung Kim's overstayed visa, financial records from the Seattle victim showing wire transfers totaling $340,000, all made in the month before she disappeared. And there, at the bottom, a photograph that made his blood run cold. It was Jessica, Min Jung, standing next to a man Rob recognized from Jake's surveillance photos, Wei Jiang. But they weren't in some random restaurant. They were at what looked like an official ceremony, both dressed formally, holding certificates. The caption, translated from Chinese, read, "Business partners, Wei Jiang and Min Jung Kim celebrate opening of international consulting firm, Shanghai, 2022. Not husband and wife, business partners. This wasn't a crime of passion or desperation. This was organized professional fraud." Pat leaned forward. "The FBI wants to build a case. They think this is part of a larger operation, that there are more victims, more conspirators. But they need her to incriminate herself further. They need evidence of active fraud, not just past crimes." "What are you asking?" "They want to run a controlled operation, with your help." Rob looked at the evidence spread across the table. At the photograph of Daniel's smiling face with Jessica, taken just last week and posted on social media with the caption, "Can't wait to marry my best friend." "Tell me what they need." Pat's expression was grave. "They need you to invite her back, for another dinner. And they need her to believe you've accepted her, so she'll feel comfortable enough to make mistakes. You want me to bait a trap using my own son. I want you to save your son before he becomes another victim." Pat's hand covered his. "The Seattle guy? He tried to kill himself after she cleaned out his accounts. He survived, barely. The Austin victim had a complete mental breakdown, lost his job, his house. These people, they don't just take money, Rob. They destroy lives." Rob looked at Helen's photo on his phone's lock screen. 3 years ago, as the cancer was taking her, she'd made him promise one thing: take care of our boy. No matter what it costs, he'd promised. "When do we start?" Pat pulled out her phone. "I'll set up a meeting with the FBI contact. Agent Karen Miller. She's good, Rob. She'll walk you through everything." As Rob drove home that night, his phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. "Dad?" His son's voice was strained, emotional. "I need to tell you something." Rob's chest tightened. "What is it?" "Jessica's pregnant, 6 weeks. Daniel's voice broke. "Dad, I'm going to be a father, and I need you to accept her, please. I can't do this without you." Rob pulled into his driveway and sat in the darkness, phone pressed to his ear, listening to his son's hope and fear and desperate need for approval. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that this was Jessica's final card, the ultimate manipulation. Whether the pregnancy was real or fake, it was designed to do exactly this: force Rob's hand, make Daniel choose, create an irreversible commitment. "Son," Rob said carefully, "that's wonderful news, really. Why don't you bring Jessica and her parents over Friday night? Let me do this right. Let me welcome her properly into our family." The relief in Daniel's voice was almost unbearable. "Really? Dad, thank you. Thank you so much. After they hung up, Rob sat in his truck for a long time. In 3 days, he would sit across from Jessica Park, or Min Jung Kim, or whoever she really was, and watch as federal agents destroyed the elaborate lies she'd built around his son's heart. And Daniel would be there to see it all. The Washington field office hadn't changed since Rob's consulting days 15 years ago. Same sterile hallways, same fluorescent lighting that made everyone look slightly ill, same air of barely contained urgency that permeated every federal building in the D.C. metro area. Agent Karen Miller met him in the lobby at precisely 9 a.m. She was younger than he'd expected, early 40s maybe, with the kind of sharp, assessing gaze that reminded him of the best analysts he'd worked with overseas. Her handshake was firm, professional. "Mr. Harrison, Pat Reynolds speaks very highly of you." Pat exaggerates. I doubt that. Miller led him through security, up 3 floors, into a windowless conference room. "She said you were the best intelligence officer she ever worked with. Said you could read people like books written in languages they didn't even know they were speaking." Rob didn't respond. The compliment felt hollow when weighed against what he was about to do. Miller spread files across the table, photographs, financial records, immigration documents. Jessica's face appeared again and again, but there were others too, other women, other victims, all part of the same terrible pattern. "We've been tracking this operation for 18 months, Miller began. "It's sophisticated, well-funded, and extremely effective. We believe it's run by Wei Jiang, a Chinese national operating out of Vancouver. He recruits women in mainland China, usually from poor backgrounds, desperate for a way out, trains them, provides them with stolen identities, and sends them to target vulnerable men across North America." She pulled out a photograph of a middle-aged man. Tyler Morrison, Seattle software engineer. His wife died of breast cancer in 2021. In 2022, he met Linda Chen at a grief support group. She was perfect, understanding, patient, beautiful. 6 months later, she'd convinced him to wire $340,000 to a business investment in Hong Kong. When he discovered the truth, he tried to hang himself in his garage. His neighbor found him in time, but he's never been the same. Rob's jaw tightened. Dr. James Patterson, Austin. Another photograph. Lost his wife to a car accident, met Sarah Kim through a dating app. She was a graduate student, studying medicine, dreaming of opening a free clinic for underserved communities. He gave her access to his accounts to help with her tuition. She cleaned him out, over $500,000. He lost his medical practice, his home, his license, had a complete mental breakdown. Miller leaned forward. "These aren't crimes of opportunity, Mr. Harrison. This is psychological warfare. They study their targets for months, social media, public records, mutual acquaintances. By the time they make first contact, they know exactly what their victim needs to hear, and they're patient. They'll spend 6 months, a year, building trust before they strike." How many victims? That we know of? 8 across 4 states, total documented losses exceeding $2.3 million. But we think there are more who never came forward, either from embarrassment or because they didn't realize they'd been defrauded. Rob thought of Daniel's face when he'd announced the pregnancy, that desperate hope, that need for his father's approval. "You could arrest her now. You have enough for immigration fraud, identity theft." We could. But if we move now, we only get her. Wei Jiang will recruit another woman, create another identity, and keep going. I want the entire network. Miller's voice hardened. "I want to make sure they can't do this to anyone else." "What do you need from me?" "We need her to incriminate herself on record. Ideally, we want her to reveal details about the operation, how they recruit, how they choose targets, who's running it. To do that, we need to make her feel safe, like she's won." Miller opened a legal pad. "Pat mentioned you've invited her back for dinner Friday. That's our opportunity. We wire your home, audio and video, completely discreet. We position agents nearby. You play the accepting father-in-law. If she believes Daniel is fully committed because of the pregnancy, she may get careless. People often do when they think they've succeeded." Rob stared at the photographs of the other victims. Men who'd lost everything because they dared to love again. "Agent Miller, I need you to understand something. My son will be there. He'll witness everything, the confrontation, the arrest. He'll watch the woman he loves being taken into federal custody. I know. Miller's expression softened slightly. And I wish there was another way. But Mr. Harrison, if you don't do this, she'll marry him. She'll take everything, his money, his trust, possibly his will to live. The Seattle victim? He still can't form meaningful relationships. The Austin victim lost his career, his reputation. These operations don't just steal money, they destroy people. Rob looked at Helen's photo on his phone. 3 years since cancer had taken her. 3 years of watching Daniel struggle with grief and loneliness. 3 years of his son rebuilding his life, only to have this predator target him. When do we start? We'll need 48 hours to install surveillance equipment. Can you maintain normal contact with Daniel until then? He'll want to talk about the pregnancy, about wedding plans. Good. Keep him engaged. The more natural everything seems, the better. Miller paused. There's something else you should know. We ran preliminary checks on the pregnancy claim. The ultrasound images she showed Daniel? They're stock photos from a medical website. We found the exact same images on 3 different medical blogs. Rob's hands clenched into fists. So the baby almost certainly doesn't exist, but we need medical confirmation. That will be part of the arrest package. That evening, Rob's phone rang. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. Dad? His son's voice was strained, emotional. I need to tell you something. Rob's chest tightened. What is it, son? Jessica's pregnant, 6 weeks. Daniel's voice broke. I'm going to be a father. And Dad, I know we haven't been on great terms lately, but I need you. I need you to accept her, please. I can't do this without your support. The words were like knives. Rob closed his eyes, thinking of the stock photos, the lies, the carefully constructed trap his son had walked into. Son, that's wonderful news, really. Rob forced warmth into his voice. Why don't you bring Jessica and her parents over Friday night? Let me do this right. Let me welcome her properly into our family. The relief in Daniel's voice was almost unbearable. Really? Dad, you mean it? I mean it. We'll start fresh. After they hung up, Rob sat in his workshop, staring at the tools he'd used for 40 years. In 3 days, he would betray his son's trust to save his life. It was the hardest decision he'd ever made. Wednesday afternoon brought an unexpected complication. Rob was in his shop, replacing capacitors in a 1960s Zenith radio, when his phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Harrison? This is Dr. Emily Walsh. I'm a friend of Daniel's. We met briefly at your wife's funeral 3 years ago. Rob remembered her vaguely. Blonde, professional, had stayed late to talk with Daniel after most guests had left. Dr. Walsh, what can I do for you? I'm calling about Daniel, about his relationship with Jessica Park. Emily's voice was careful, professional. Mr. Harrison, I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in trauma and manipulation. I've been watching Daniel's relationship develop, and I'm seeing patterns that deeply concern me. Rob set down his soldering iron. What kind of patterns? Textbook emotional manipulation. Isolation from friends. Daniel used to have a close group, but over the past 3 months, he stopped seeing most of them. Jessica always has a reason why they can't make it to gatherings, why those friends are toxic or don't understand their love. Financial enmeshment. She's already asked him to add her to his bank account for emergency access. Love bombing followed by calculated withdrawal. It's classic narcissistic control. You've tried talking to Daniel about this? Emily's laugh was bitter. Jessica got ahead of me. When I gently suggested Daniel take things slowly, she convinced him I was jealous. Now he barely returns my calls. Rob felt a surge of gratitude for this woman who'd seen what he'd seen, who'd tried to protect Daniel from a different angle. Dr. Walsh, Emily, I appreciate your concern, but I need you to trust me and stay out of this for the next 48 hours. Can you do that? The silence stretched. What's happening Friday night? The truth. Finally. Will Daniel be safe? Physically, yes. Emotionally. Rob paused. He's going to need professional help afterward. Would you be willing to work with him? Of course. That's exactly why I called. Emily hesitated. Mr. Harrison, whatever you're planning, be careful. People like Jessica don't react well when their control is threatened. They can be dangerous. Thursday evening, the FBI technical team arrived. Miller led 3 agents into Rob's home, all carrying equipment cases that looked like ordinary toolboxes. For 2 hours, they worked with surgical precision, installing pinhole cameras in the living room crown molding, the dining room light fixture, the kitchen cabinet. Audio pickups went into air vents behind picture frames, under furniture. You'll never know they're there, Torres, the lead tech, assured him, and the quality will be broadcast standard. Everything she says, everything she does. We'll have it on record. Miller pulled Rob aside while her team worked. When she arrives tomorrow, act natural. Let the conversation flow. Don't push too hard for admissions. Let her feel comfortable enough to reveal things on her own. People who think they've won get sloppy. And if she doesn't incriminate herself? She will. Criminals always talk too much when they think they're safe. Miller's expression was grim. We've done this before, Mr. Harrison. Trust the process. After they left, Rob walked through his home, trying to spot the surveillance equipment. He found nothing. His own house had become a stage, and tomorrow night would be opening night of a performance he'd been rehearsing for 2 weeks. His phone buzzed at 9:47 p.m. Jessica's name appeared. Rob, I hope I'm not calling too late. Not at all, Jessica. What's on your mind? I just wanted to say thank you again for the dinner invitation. Her voice was warm, slightly vulnerable. I know things got off to a rocky start between us, and I take responsibility for that. I should have tried harder to connect with you. Rob recognized the technique, taking false ownership, appearing self-aware, classic manipulation. Water under the bridge, he said smoothly. I'm looking forward to starting fresh. Me too. And Rob? She paused. I want you to know that Daniel talks about you constantly, how smart you are, how you can fix anything, how you always protected him growing up. He admires you so much. I hope I can earn that same respect. The audacity was breathtaking. She was using Daniel's love for his father as a tool to manipulate the father himself. I'm sure you will, Jessica. See you tomorrow night. After hanging up, Rob stood in his kitchen, surrounded by hidden cameras and microphones, and felt the weight of what was coming. Tomorrow night, Daniel's world would shatter, and there was no way to prepare him, no way to soften the blow. Sometimes love meant becoming the villain to save the person you cherished most. Friday arrived with perfect October weather, clear skies, a gentle breeze, temperatures in the low 70s, the kind of day Helen had loved. Rob prepared the same meal as their first dinner, pot roast with root vegetables, mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, apple pie for dessert. Routine as camouflage, normal as disguise. At 5:45 p.m., his phone buzzed. Miller, team in position, all systems live. Remember, act natural. At 6:30 exactly, the doorbell rang. Daniel arrived first, his face radiant with hope. Behind him, Jessica practically glowed in a soft blue dress that accentuated a pregnancy that didn't exist. Richard and Linda Cooper followed, carrying wine and flowers, performing their paid roles with practiced ease. Rob, Jessica embraced him warmly, and he caught the expensive scent of her perfume. Thank you so much for this. It means everything to us. Come in, please. Rob accepted the flowers, noting how Jessica's eyes swept through his home like an appraiser calculating value. Dinner began smoothly. Small talk, compliments on the food, discussion of wedding venues. Jessica was brilliant, charming, deferential in just the right measure, laughing at Rob's stories about Helen with what appeared to be genuine warmth. We've been looking at a place in Middleburg, Daniel said, cutting into his pot roast. Beautiful barn venue, but elegant. They can do the ceremony and reception. What do you think, Dad? Sounds perfect, son. Jessica leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. Rob, I wanted to ask your advice about something. Daniel says you're wonderful with finances and planning. With the baby coming, we're thinking about our future, how to structure things properly. Assets, investments, that sort of thing. There it was. The first real probe. Well, that depends on what you're both bringing to the marriage, Rob said carefully. Jessica's smile never wavered. Oh, I don't have much. My teaching salary isn't substantial, around $35,000 a year. But Daniel's done so well, and I know eventually he'll inherit this beautiful home. My house? Rob kept his voice neutral. Daniel mentioned you'd plan to leave it to him someday. I just meant we should think long-term, plan for the baby's future. This neighborhood, the schools are excellent. We could raise our child here, keep it in the family." Through his nearly invisible earpiece, Rob heard Miller's voice. "She's showing her hand. Keep her talking." "I hadn't really thought about that," Rob said, "though I'm planning to live quite a while longer." Jessica laughed, too bright, too quick. "Of course. I didn't mean, God, that came out wrong. I just meant, long-term financial planning, making sure Daniel and I are building something stable for our family." Her phone rang. She glanced at it, and something flickered across her face. Tension, maybe urgency. "Excuse me, I need to take this. Work emergency." She stood, already walking toward the kitchen. Rob watched her go. Through his earpiece, he could hear the audio feed from the kitchen pickup. Jessica's voice, low and rapid, but she wasn't speaking English or Korean. She was speaking Mandarin. 魏哥，一切按计划进行，老头已经完全接受了。下个月我们就结婚，拿到绿卡，之后按原计划离开。Brother Wei, everything is going according to plan. The old man has completely accepted. We'll marry next month, get the green card. After that, we leave as planned. Rob's blood turned to ice. She was reporting to Wei Jiang, right now, in his kitchen. Miller's voice crackled in his ear. "We got it. That's enough for conspiracy. Moving in 2 minutes." Rob stood, his heart pounding. Daniel looked up, confused. "Dad, you okay?" Jessica returned from the kitchen, her mask perfectly back in place. "Sorry about that. Student's mother, very upset about practice schedules." Rob looked at his son, saw the trust in his eyes, the love, the desperate hope that his family was finally coming together. Then he looked at Jessica and made his choice. He spoke in Korean. "Jessica, 당신은 정말로 한국 사람이에요?" "Jessica, are you really Korean?" The change was instantaneous. Jessica's face drained of all color. Her wineglass slipped slightly in her hand. Richard and Linda froze, forks halfway to their mouths. What?" Jessica's voice came out as a whisper. Rob switched to Mandarin. "Huanxi ni qisha shizhongguo ren?" Or are you actually Chinese? "Dad!" Daniel stood abruptly, his chair scraping against hardwood. "What are you doing? How do you speak Korean?" "Korean and Mandarin," Rob said calmly, never breaking eye contact with Jessica. 20 years in military intelligence, son, 15 of them focused on East Asian communications and operations. Jessica's carefully constructed persona shattered like glass. You understood everything. At our first dinner, you called me an old pig," Rob continued, his voice level. "You told Richard and Linda I was stupid, that this would be easy. And just now, on the phone, you reported to Wei Jiang that everything was going according to plan." "Dad, wait!" Daniel's voice was desperate, confused. "What are you talking about? Wei Jiang? Who is—" The doorbell rang with sharp authority. Rob walked to the door and opened it. Agent Miller stood there with 3 agents behind her, all with badges clearly visible. "Min Jung Kim," Miller said, her voice carrying absolute authority. "You are under arrest for immigration fraud, identity theft, marriage fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent." Jessica's scream cut through the room like a knife. "This is entrapment. You set me up. This isn't legal." "Actually," Miller said calmly, "it's completely legal. You were informed of your rights the moment you entered a relationship under false pretenses for the purpose of committing fraud." Richard Cooper stood, hands raised, his face pale. "We're just actors. She paid us $800 each. We thought it was for family photos. We had no idea." Linda Foster was crying. "Please, we didn't know it was illegal. She said it was a surprise for a wedding, that she wanted to give her fiancé the family experience." Daniel stood frozen in the center of the dining room, his face white with shock. "Jessica? What's happening?" Jessica whirled on him, her mask completely gone, replaced by desperation and rage. "Daniel, please, he's lying. Your father can't stand that you love me, that you chose me over him. This is all—" Agent Miller stepped forward with handcuffs. "Ma'am, you need to stop talking and come with us." Rob pulled out his phone, opened the folder Pat had compiled. "Her real name isn't Jessica Park, son. It's Min Jung Kim. The real Jessica Park died in a car accident in California 14 months ago. Your fiancé stole her identity." Daniel took the phone with trembling hands, staring at the death certificate, the immigration records, the photographs. The pregnancy? Rob's voice was gentle. The ultrasound images she showed you are stock photos from a medical website. There is no baby. There never was. No. Daniel's voice was barely audible. No, that's not. Jessica, tell them they're wrong. Tell them. Jessica tried to run, bolting toward the kitchen exit, but Agent Torres was already positioned there. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound like the breaking of chains. Daniel! Jessica's voice became pleading, desperate, all calculations stripped away. I love you! Whatever they're saying, I love you! Don't let them do this! Miller was reading Miranda rights while two agents escorted Richard and Linda to separate areas for questioning. Through it all, Jessica kept screaming Daniel's name, kept insisting she loved him, kept trying to maintain the lie even as it crumbled around her. Daniel stood motionless in the wreckage of his dining room, half-eaten pot roast on plates, wine glasses overturned, the flowers Jessica had brought wilting in their vase. Was any of it real? He whispered. Jessica stopped at the door, agents on either side of her. For just a moment, something almost human flickered across her face. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Then she was gone, and the house fell silent except for the sound of Daniel's ragged breathing. You knew, Daniel said finally, not looking at his father. How long? 2 weeks. Daniel's laugh was broken, bitter. 2 weeks, while I was buying baby furniture, while I was defending her against you, while I was telling you Mom would be disappointed. His voice cracked. How could you not tell me? I needed proof you couldn't deny. Daniel looked up, his eyes red and filled with a pain Rob had never seen before. Did you get it? Yes. Daniel nodded slowly, then walked to the door. Rob reached for him, but his son pulled away. I need to go. I can't be here right now. Son, please, don't. Daniel's voice was hollow. Just don't. The door closed behind him. Through the window, Rob watched his son's car pull away, taking with it any illusion that saving someone didn't come with a terrible cost. Agent Miller approached quietly. Mr. Harrison, we got everything we needed. The phone call to Wei Jiang, the asset conversation, all of it recorded. This will help us dismantle the entire network. Rob nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Your son will understand eventually, Miller said gently. Give him time. After everyone left, Rob sat alone in his dining room. The smell of pot roast had gone cold. Wine stains marked the tablecloth like bloodstains. He pulled out his phone and looked at Helen's picture, her smile, her eyes, everything he'd lost. I protected him, Rob whispered. But God, Helen, I hope I didn't lose him in the process. Outside, the perfect October evening continued, peaceful and oblivious. Inside, Rob Harrison sat among the ruins and wondered if love was supposed to hurt this much when you got it right. 5 days of silence. Rob called Daniel Saturday morning. Voicemail. Sunday afternoon. Voicemail again. By Monday, he forced himself to stop. Daniel needed space to process that his entire relationship had been a performance, but the silence was killing him. Tuesday brought an email from Jessica's attorney. Process. Threats of civil action for entrapment and emotional distress. Rob forwarded it to Agent Miller without reading the full text. Ignore it, Miller said when she called. They're just rattling cages. Don't engage. How long does this usually take, the processing? Everyone's different. But Mr. Harrison, what Daniel's going through, it's grief. He's mourning someone who never existed. Wednesday brought worse news. Minjung is claiming she's pregnant, Miller said, demanding medical examination, threatening motions about protecting an unborn child. We need court-ordered testing. Daniel will have to provide DNA for comparison. Rob's hand tightened on the phone. It's fake. We know it's fake. We need medical proof. I'm sorry. Thursday afternoon, Dr. Emily Walsh called. Daniel contacted me. He's agreed to therapy. He's struggling, anger, betrayal, self-blame, but he's safe. Can I help? Give him space. He doesn't blame you, Mr. Harrison. He blames himself. That's what we're working on. The call came at 2:47 a.m. Friday. Dad? Daniel's voice was broken. I can't sleep. I can't tell which memories were real and which ones she was faking. Where are you? Home. His breath hitched. I defended her against you. I told you Mom would be disappointed. And she wasn't even Korean. She was Chinese, using a dead woman's identity. You were protecting someone you loved. That's not a flaw, son. That's who you are. Silence. Then, the FBI wants my DNA for the baby that probably doesn't exist. Then we'll handle it together. Whatever the results, you don't have to do this alone. They talked until dawn. When they hung up, Rob felt like he'd gotten his son back. Not completely, but enough. 10 days after the arrest, Rob and Daniel sat across from Agent Miller in the FBI conference room. Emily had driven Daniel, waiting in the lobby. Medical examination results, Miller began, sliding a report across the table. Min Jung Kim is not pregnant, never has been. The ultrasound images cost $14.99 from a stock website. Daniel stared at the report, hands trembling. $15, he whispered. Miller pulled out more files. We've uncovered the full network. 11 victims across 6 states, total losses exceeding $3.7 million. She spread photographs, men in their 30s and 40s, all successful, all vulnerable. Tyler Morrison, Seattle, lost $340,000, attempted suicide. Dr. James Patterson, Austin, lost over $500,000, complete breakdown, lost his medical license. Miller continued through the files. Michael Chen, Portland, Robert Williams, Phoenix, David Martinez, Houston. Daniel studied the faces. They all look like me. Successful, recently bereaved or divorced, kind-hearted, Miller confirmed. You're the only one who discovered the truth before losing everything. Your father intervened in time. She leaned forward. We arrested Wei Jiang in Vancouver 4 days ago. Between your case and testimony from other victims, we have enough to request significant prison time. Daniel, would you be willing to testify? Daniel looked at the photographs of broken men. Those guys lost everything because no one stopped her. Dad stopped her. He looked at Rob. The least I can do is make sure she can't do it to anyone else. Rob felt pride swell in his chest. Your mother would be proud. Daniel's eyes filled with tears, but he smiled, the first real smile in 2 weeks. Yeah, she would. 3 months later, the trial began. Rob sat in the gallery while Daniel testified, his voice steady, describing the relationship, the staged meeting, the manipulation, the isolation, the fake pregnancy. When asked to identify Min Jung Kim, Daniel pointed without hesitation. She sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, staring at him. He never looked back. The trial lasted 6 days. Victim after victim described identical patterns. The jury deliberated 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Min Jung Kim, 8 years federal prison, permanent deportation. Wei Jiang, 15 years federal prison. These crimes represent systematic exploitation of vulnerable people, the judge said at sentencing. You showed no remorse, only anger at being caught. Before transport to federal prison, Min Jung requested to see Daniel one final time. Against advice, he agreed. They sat separated by reinforced glass in the detention center. Rob watched through the window. Why did you come? Min Jung asked. I need to know if any of it was real, Daniel said quietly. She was silent then. I grew up in poverty, you can't imagine. Wei offered me a way out. Money, security, freedom. All I had to do was play a role. So I was just a job. You were a mark. I studied you for 2 months. I knew about your mother, your loneliness, your fears. I knew exactly what to say. Her expression hardened, and you fell completely. Daniel stood to leave. Wait. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry about one thing. You deserved better. You were kind, genuine. If I'd been capable of feeling something real, it might have been for someone like you. But I wasn't. No, Daniel said quietly. You're not. He walked out without looking back. 6 months later, on a warm Sunday in August, Daniel and Dr. Emily Walsh stood at Rob's door holding hands. We wanted to talk to you about something, Daniel said, smiling genuinely for the first time in a year. Over coffee, they explained. Therapy had become friendship. Friendship had become something more. This is different, Dad, Daniel said. We've taken it incredibly slow. I've been honest about my fears, my trust issues. Emily's been completely transparent. I've met her family 4 times, her friends, her colleagues, no secrets, no performances. Emily smiled. This is real. Rob looked at her. No practiced charm, no calculated responses, just genuine care. I'm happy for you both. Daniel met his father's eyes. I'll never be completely sure about anything again. Jessica broke something in me. But Emily's helping me rebuild it, piece by piece. And I think I'm ready to trust again, carefully, but ready. After they left, Rob stood in his workshop, looking at Helen's photograph. He's going to be okay, he told her. Our boy's going to be okay. His phone rang, unknown number. Mr. Harrison, I'm Kevin Park. A friend gave me your number, said you helped his family. It's about my son. He's engaged to a woman named Michelle Chen, and something doesn't feel right. Could you possibly help? Rob looked out the window at Daniel's car pulling away, Emily beside him, both laughing. Give me her full name and any information you have, Rob said, pulling out his notepad. Thank you. I don't know what I'd do if something happened to my boy. Rob thought about 11 days of silence, watching Daniel break and rebuild. That's what fathers do, Mr. Park. We protect our children, no matter the cost. After hanging up, Rob opened his laptop and emailed Pat Reynolds. Another case. Another worried father. Another predator hunting the vulnerable. The work wasn't finished. It never would be. He pulled up the photo Kevin had sent, a young woman with a too-perfect smile standing next to a nervous man. Rob had seen that smile before. He began to type, starting the process again. Because love, real love, meant standing guard even when the battle never ended. Somewhere in the evening air, he could almost hear Helen's voice. That's my Rob, always protecting those who can't protect themselves. He smiled and got to work.